Remote Evil. Book 1. Chapter 24. Cornered. This audiovisual book was created by Joseph Russell Tim Pugison. Her rapist immediately unmounted Cherry and rolled near her side in pain. He has been stabbed but not deep enough. But it was still very painful and he was bleeding profusely. Cherry instinctively rode him and tried to stab him blindly one more time, but he was still strong and alert enough to stop her from stabbing him again. He held the two arms of Cherry with his two hands. Cherry fought hard to release her arms from his grip, but he was too strong for her. All her pent-up anger is fast being released now. Her rapist might have been stronger than her, but she is so angry and desperate that she will not give in to him no matter what happens. But she can feel that her rapist is fast taking control of her. In sheer desperation and anger she bit one of the hands of her rapist. Her teeth sank deep in his hand. Blood dripped fast from the deep teeth bites in his hand her bite caused. She kept biting and chewing his hand like a rabid dog. He released her grip on her arms while shouting in pain. But his pain has been momentarily overpowered by his anger at Cherry. He swung one mean punch at the face of Cherry, which caused her to fall back on her side and land on his side. Cherry was completely stunned and dazed. Blood oozed from her nose, which was hit by his mean punch and is now swollen. Her rapist then mounted her so he can pin her down. But Cherry is fighting for her life now, and all the pain she is feeling and the beating she is experiencing is being overpowered by all the adrenaline flowing in her body. Cherry will not give up the knife in her hand that her rapist is trying to take away from her. She struggled against him violently. Her rapist may have a knife wound and a now swollen and bleeding hand, but he is still strong and is also very angry with her. Cherry knows this, especially now that she can feel his heavy body starting to pin her body, which is now unable to move that much. In another act of desperation she blindly lunged her body at him and bit him on his exposed neck. The neck bite may not be deep, but it hurt and wounded a very sensitive part of the body that her rapist uncontrollably grimaced and nearly shouted in pain. Distracted by his neck wound, he involuntarily loosened his grip on the arms of Cherry for a short while. This is all the distraction that she needs, and she was able to stab him one more time. This time she was able to successfully stab him in the rib cage area. He again shouted in pain. He started to alternatively curse her and shout in pain. He touched the bloodied stab wound on his rib cage as if trying to cover it up to stop it from bleeding. Full of anger, he suddenly slapped Cherry hard on the face. The back and head of Cherry landed hard on the floor when she fell back after being slapped in the face by her rapist. As if he stopped caring that he did not want to really kill her but just subdue her, he took out the gun from his shoulder holster and aimed the gun at her and prepared to shoot her straight in the head. She did not care. Her mind must have left her. She blindly swung her knife towards him without caring if she got shot and die. Her unthinking and suicidal action happened so fast that her rapist must have been taken by surprise and was completely confused that she was able to wound him a fourth time. She was able to cut him wide in the chest. This time, because she swung the knife instead of stabbing him, she was only able to cause a shallow but very long cut on his front body. It may not be fatal, but it was the most painful wound he received from her. It was also the most painful wound he has experienced all his life. He lost control of his senses and started shooting wildly inside the cage while clumsily standing up and then blindly wandering from one corner of the cage to another, trying to find a way to ease the extreme pain coming from the wide wound cut in front of his body. By now the adrenaline of Cherry was starting to go down and she was starting to think a bit clearer. She felt fear when he started shooting wildly because of all the stabs and cuts he received from her. She quickly analyzed the situation around her and made a quick decision. She musters up her last courage and kicked him in the groin area. He went down shrieking in pain while holding his groin. She heads to the open door of the fence wire cage and successfully exits the cage, leaving her rapist inside still agonizing in pain. She was almost about to exit the camper van itself when she heard him shout, "Stop, bitch!" He angrily shouted at her. She fearfully stopped and looked back. He was still lying inside the floor of the fence wire cage. His gun was directly pointed at her. "Go back here to your cage, bitch!" he further shouted angrily. Her heart was pounding so hard, wondering what to do. All is lost, she said to herself, knowing that he has her clearly targeted by the crosshairs of his gun. Then she made her decision. It was do or die. She jumped towards the door of the camper van, gambling on her theory that her rapist still has hesitations to kill her. She was wrong about her theory. He fired his gun repeatedly at her, but he may have pulled the trigger too late, or as she suspected, he hesitated to kill her. Some of the bullets got blocked by the thick wires in the fence wire wall of the cage and never reached her. 2 bullets were able to pass through the fence wire wall of the cage wall and narrowly missed her. She landed hard on the outside of the camper van, just in front of the camper van door. Her body was in pain from falling down hard on the solid forest ground. She even thinks she may have broken or sprained a bone based on the pain she is experiencing. But in her mind she was free. "I'm free! I'm free!" her mind deliriously shouted. Never minding all the various pains she is feeling in her body, she stood up and ran straight for a random location into the forest and away from the camper van. She ran as fast as she can. To get away was all that was on her mind. To where? She does not care. She was only able to run for a short distance away from the camper van when she heard a loud recorded electronic voice. "Freeze! Don't move or you will be shot dead. Drop your weapons immediately." This recorded electronic message was repeated over and over again. She paused for about a second but continued to run. She would not stop. She is ready to die just to escape. She knows in her mind that either the accomplices of her rapist have found her or the remotely controlled guns of her rapist have tracked her. She did not stop running nevertheless. A gun fired at her. The sound of the gunshot made her instinctively duck to the ground. Her fear suddenly overpowered her grim determination to escape. Luckily she landed near or almost on one of the obstacles which John removed before. The obstacle was just large enough to barely hide her from the bullets that were now being fired in a sequentially timed manner. By the way the bullets were being fired, she had the idea that a machine could be firing the bullets and not a person. A real person would have had easily shot her to death in the open clearing of this grassy part of the forest. But she was trapped. Whoever or whatever was shooting at her was a poor shot, but its accuracy seems to be fast improving. As if it was auto-correcting itself every time it shoots at her hiding place. If she tries to stand up from her hiding place and makes a run for it, she is sure she will be hit by the bullets that were now fast getting very accurate in pinpointing her accurate location. She looked at the camper van, which was still not very far away from her. Her rapist was staring at her by the door of the camper van. He was trying to point his gun at her, but he was still too weak or too much in pain from his wounds and cuts to accurately target her. Cherry cried with deep sorrow. She has been trapped. She realizes that there is no way she can get out of her hiding place alive. If she surrenders, she will be back in her fence wire-walled cage prison, and she knows in her mind that after this escape try there will be no more opportunity for her to escape, even if she is still alive in the first place. She makes up her mind and prepares to die trying to escape. She gets ready to stand up, run as fast as she can and try to escape, even if it could mean her certain death. End of chapter.